Hello and welcome back to another episode on Life Afloat. As we speak, I am still uploading my latest video about me trying to change the thermostat, where if you watched that, you will have seen that it is in fact not there in the engine. I've literally just had an idea as to what the issue might be. Given that there's no thermostat fitted, then surely the engine shouldn't be overheating, because the thermostat opens up when the engine gets hot to allow water through. Without there being a thermostat there, the coolant should be continuously going through and keeping the engine cold. So perhaps there is a reason the coolant is not getting through and circulating around the engine, which means either the water pump could be faulty, which I really hope it's not, or there could just be a blockage somewhere in the system. So I've got an idea of where that might be, and I'm going to show you. Right, so this is the thermostat housing I removed earlier, and this red tube here goes all the way around there to that the T-junction here, and this goes into the heat exchanger, and in here that's the coolant filler cap, and this tube goes up to the expansion tank. Now, I took the lid off the expansion tank so that there'd be no vacuum and things could drain out when I removed the thermostat housing. However, nothing is drained out of the expansion tank, so I'm led to believe that there's potentially a blockage between the heat exchanger and the thermostat housing, because when I took this off, thinking about it, surely the coolant should have come through this pipe and out of the housing here when I took it off, and nothing did come out, and nothing's drained out of the expansion tank, which means nothing higher than the thermostat housing drained out when I removed it, only what was probably in this pipe. If that's making sense. It makes sense to me, I hope it does to you. So what I'm going to do is take this off, and if there's no blockage, coolant should come out of here. If it doesn't, then we've got a blockage, and I need to look into this tube. But you can see how tight the Jubilee clip was. Let me just zoom in a little bit. I've already loosened the Jubilee clip. Look how tight it was. It's really squashed the tube there. Anyway, I'm going to try and take this off and see if we get any coolant coming out. Right, so I've taken it off. I ended up having to just cut along it slightly because it was on so tight. No coolant is coming out of it when I hold it upside down. So what I'm going to do is remove it from the T-piece there, and if we've got coolant coming out when I remove it from the T-piece, as in the coolant's coming out from the T-piece, not this pipe, then this tube needs replacing. Right, so this is the other end of the pipe. I've taken the whole thing off. No coolant is coming out of the what do you call it, the T-piece there, but there's no blockage in this pipe because I can blow through that and I feel the air coming out the other side. So this pipe is fine. Right, I'm getting excited now. This is blocked. Let me just show you where it was, because I've taken it off. Right, so that is the T-piece. Off to the right was the red pipe that I took off initially, and I blew through and it was fine. I could blow air through it. To the left was this piece that I've just taken off, which goes up to the heat exchanger. It's blocked. I've tried to blow through it and I can't. So I think that might be the cause of my overheating problem. I've just got to try and find another pipe now, which should be quite easy to do, I think, and replace it, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that will solve the issue. Okay, so this is a bit strange. I took this off and I couldn't blow through it. This was in the pipe. The pipe was on that, like so, and I couldn't blow through it. I've removed these, I've separated these two pieces, and I can now blow through each of them. So what I'm thinking is the way that this was in the pipe is bent, and what I'm thinking is the bend in the pipe was restricting the access into this little copper tube here, potentially. So what I'm going to do is attempt to trim off the bad bits of this hose, and I may just trim this down slightly, this copper tube as well, and then refit it, see if I can blow through it, and then put it back and run the engine and see if that makes any difference. Right, so I've now cut off the ends of the tubes where I just had to slice down to be able to remove it from the fittings on the engine. I've cut the little copper tube at this end, so it now goes to just after where the Jubilee clip is inside the hose, so there's still plenty there, and I'm able to blow through this without any problem at all. So I'm going to put it back. Hopefully there's still enough length left in it for it all to go back together how it was, and then we'll just see if that makes any difference. Well, I mean, it must do, right? I couldn't blow through it before and now I can, so a bit bizarre, but I'm going to just put it back together and yeah, just see if that has helped the situation. Right, there we go. So it's now all put back together, as you can see. I just had enough tubing left after I cut off the bits that I had to slice down to remove them from the sort of engine fittings, if you like. So what I'm going to do now is just put a bit of water in here, just to check that I haven't got any leaking out of where I moved the thermostat housing earlier, because I've used the old gaskets that were there. So I just want to check that is done up nice and tight before I go ahead and put coolant in there, because I don't want to waste any coolant. And once that's all done and I'm happy that it's not leaking, I'm going to start up the engine and hopefully it won't overheat. Right, so this is pretty much the moment of truth. I have double checked, I've put everything back and it's all done up and tight. There's no leaks. It's filled up with coolant. The cap is back on the heat exchanger and also back on the expansion tank. So it's time just to start it up and have our fingers crossed, really. So I'm going to let the engine run for a little while, an hour or two, and just keep an eye on the temperature, and also just keep an eye that there's no coolant leaking out from anywhere that I've disconnected anything. And fingers crossed we're not going to be going into the red on the old temperature gauge, but I'll keep an eye on it. And yeah, just got my fingers crossed really that it was actually that simple, just a blocked hose, but we'll see. Right, so the engine has been running for 47 now, for nearly 2 hours, and we're out of the red. We haven't gone up into the red. We've gone fairly close to it because I ran the engine under a load for 45 minutes or so, and it did go up slightly, but it didn't go into the red. It stayed sort of 3/4 of the way up, if you like, so that is good news. I'm just letting it in, sitting idle for a bit. The temperature is starting to come down now. It's back in idle as well, so the coolant is circulating around and doing its job. All the hoses and pipes to do with the coolant system are warm, very warm to the touch, which means the coolant is going around all of those, so we don't have a blockage and we've got good circulation. So I think I might have fixed it. Right, as you can hear, the engine is off, and that is good news. It's not overheated, it's not gone into the maximum, and it's stayed sort of 3/4 of the way up, so I'm pretty happy with that. It was a simple fix once I knew what the problem was, so absolute result. So there you go. If you've been wondering what's caused it, it was the the bend in that hose restricting the flow, I believe, into the little copper pipe that it sits on. So there we have it. Thank you so much for watching and taking an interest in this. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. It'd be fantastic to have your support on the channel. If you want to support me further than subscribing, there's a Patreon page which I'll pop a link to in the description below, so feel free to check that out and see what I can offer you in return for your support. And I've also got a Facebook page for the channel now. A link to that is in the description below as well. As always, please do take care of yourself, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.